Hello, everyone. This is Joel from kidneyforjoel.com, and it's day 6 of National Kidney Month, and I just wanted to share with you my day and also some random thoughts and memories as I go through this journey and in my kidney story journey. Today was a fairly good day in a sense because the weather is good. It's sunny in San Antonio, as well as I didn't really have too many patients. I saw about 5 patients today, so that was very doable, and my energy level at the end of the day was very good. And I actually watched a movie called Midnight in Paris, which is a very interesting movie with an interesting storyline about this guy, a writer, who somehow traveled through time whenever he rides this old-fashioned car and met with the legends of writing, the legends like F. Scott Fitzgerald, and also genius in the arts like Gauguin, Rodin, and Matisse, as well as Pablo Casals. And there was a very interesting, and there was a line there that really struck me, and that says that, we tend to have this illusion of living in another era that was more alive and more exciting than where we are now. It's like an escape from reality. And I thought I was the only one who had that kind of thought, because I remember when I was a teenager, I was thinking of, hey, what if I lived in the Renaissance time? Because I've always admired Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. But he eventually came back to his time, which is 2010, and, faced reality. But he had an awakening, an awareness of what was happening to him and to his relationship with his fiancée that he eventually broke up with. But, that's spoiler alert. So that was, today was a good day. Really enjoyed my time with my patients. And I have this one patient who had she's about, this is close to 80 years old, but she was independent before she fell. And she was actually riding a Segway here in the Riverwalk, downtown San Antonio, back a week before Christmas. And somehow the Segway just backed up. I guess she inadvertently handled it, and she fell over and broke her pelvis, her hip, and her left shoulder. And I saw her a week after she came out of the hospital, and at the time she was wheelchair borne, and now 2 months later she's now walking pretty much independently. She carries a cane with her, but our goal is by the end of the month she will be walking normally without any device, and that's what we call return to PLOF, return to prior level of function. And she's really looking forward to every session, and I like that. That's the thing about what I do now as a physical therapist is, you encourage, you motivate, and you rehabilitate people who for the most part want to get better. I get some patients who are not motivated to get well, and they're giving up on their condition. But majority are really, no matter what age, it's this sense of freedom that they want to have. Like this patient I saw today, one of the patients I saw today. So that's a very fulfilling emotion or a feeling that I have on a daily basis. That's why I get to do, I want to do what I do, and I am in the planning stages of making what I do, which is really empower, encourage, and inspire people, not just patients, to live life fully and to their to the utmost level, optimum level of freedom. Because ever since I faced death in the face, that's when I started to really live more fully and more aware of what my purpose is. And I can look back when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, back when I was growing up in my hometown in Leyte. I had this incessant fear of death. At first it was unconscious or subconscious, then became a conscious, incessant fear of death. I didn't really know at the time when I was 6, 7, or 8 what it was, but looking back now, I think it was because of my traumatic experience of really escaping death when I was an infant because of my kidney infection called glomerulonephritis or IgA nephropathy. And I remember, I had a very happy childhood, especially when I was growing up in Leyte until I was about 8 years old. However, there were times where I would go to my mama, and I would like hold my breath for about 30, 40 seconds. And then if I couldn't, or whenever I run out of air, of course, because I held my breath, I would cry and just say, "Ma, I don't want to die. Does it hurt to die?" I still remember those nights. It didn't happen every night, but I had those nights. Although for the most part, I enjoyed, just being a normal boy. I remember like random thoughts. I remember my sense or this inner drive to compete was ignited when I was as young as 6 years old, when I had this quote-unquote competitor on top of the class named Mercy. She was actually a pretty girl, but she had a big head, and whenever she gets a higher grade than I or than me, I would tell my parents, "Oh, she's because she's got a bigger head, so she's got a bigger brain, so that means she's smarter." So I had this, I just basically, what do you call this? Brainwash myself to thinking that whenever that happens. And I also remember that there was like a reward for being the first one to be in class. And I would run through this rice field and cemetery across from our house to the school, which is about, I don't know, a quarter of a mile, maybe a third of a mile away. And, so I would be first, in class to be there, early in the morning. And also remember this random memory of having this guy who was twice my age. He was about 12 or 13. Apparently he didn't really go to school, or he couldn't. I don't know what it was, but I was in first grade. I was 6 years old, but he was already 12 or 13. His name was Ariston. And he used to tease me with this word banog, which means eagle, because I was teased with this word in Tagalog. This was a Visayan dialect for eagle. And I don't know why I was offended by it, but that was a good tease, right? Being likened to an eagle. It came from the word banong, which is I don't know what it is. It's like a Tagalog word for something. Maybe a hard-headed boy. I really don't know the origin of the word. So they thought, my classmates thought, it meant banog, which is eagle. And man, I used to really resent him to do that. So one day, I couldn't hold my anger anymore. So I challenged him to a fist fight. And think about this: I was 6 years old, tiny. I was tiny. Again, my chronic kidney disease, my IgA nephropathy, stunted my growth. I was chubby, but I was tiny. I was short. In fact, I was the shortest in my class until I was about a junior or third year in high school. I still remember that. I was always the shortest kid, the smallest kid in the class. So anyways, so I challenged him to a fist fight, right? Because I hate him for bullying me. Oh my Lord. So we went to the front yard of the school, in front of our class, and man, one punch, he knocked me out. I was unconscious for I don't know how long. All I remember was our maid, I forgot her name now, or I think it was my nanny, I think it was Linda, who woke me up from this, sleep, because I was punched. I don't know where I was punched, but I just got knocked out. So I was crying, and my father, asked what happened. So, I tried to lie, but I couldn't, because my nanny, Linda, had to tell the truth. So, oh my Lord, I remember my father was so mad, and he searched for Ariston all over town. So we didn't hear of Ariston's what do you call this? Where he went, where he hid, and I heard from one of my classmates that he went to the hills and mountains of Tabango to hide from the wrath of Dr. Remandaban, my father. It's because he was, I guess it scared the heck out of him. But, eventually, kids are kids. I forgot about it. And the next time I saw him as an adult, I was already a physical therapist. This was back in '94. And, Ariston was there drinking with his buddies, and he invited me to take a sip of the beer and all that. So it was a very memorable moment, to say the least. So memories like that. What else do I remember? I remember playing in our backyard, which has a fish pond, and because we used to have a fish pond and a poultry, huge backyard. So there was a lot of freedom, but there was a rule that I have to be home by sunset. That was a rule. So I had a lot of freedom, but it was also a disciplined kind of childhood, because my father, again, was very strict. My mother, on the other hand, was very lenient. I don't remember my mother scolding me or, hitting me in my behind with anything. Because whenever I do something that's not good, even when I was a teenager and eventually an adult, she would just say something that's kind of like a scolding, but not really. Because she's a really, really a nice person. I think she'll go to heaven straight, undoubtedly. So there's a difference between the way my father brought me up and my mother brought me up, but they always agreed on something. If I was to be punished, my mother went along with it. She never questioned my father. So I had, I knew what was, it was black and white. It was like he either did something wrong or did something very good. Okay. So I was in my hometown growing up until I was 8 years old, 8.5 almost. And then, me and my brother Benjo, who's 3 years younger than me, moved to Manila to go to this school called University of Santo Tomas. So I'm going to relate that because that was also a great time. In fact, one of my classmates is here, Pong Pagabao. Hey, Pong. I remember when I was in 4th grade, we were in the same basketball team. Even though I was the shortest, I was in the basketball team, believe it or not. And Pong here actually was a great basketball player. Him and Albert, I remember that. They taught me about basketball and really enjoyed the sport. In fact, I remember our first coach was Pong's, Nong, Pong's husband, Ernesto Pagabao, who was our first coach in basketball. And because I was the shortest, but I was fast, kind of fast, so I was a bench warmer for the most part. But it was a good time. But anyways, I'm going to relate that more. So relating back to the current news about my kidney search, again, I've received quite a few questions about the status of my kidney donor search. Again, I'm still in search of my perfect match. It doesn't take, it takes a long time to really test each and every potential donor, at least 60 to 90 days at least. It can take longer. As I said in the past, my first 4 potential donors took 3 of them took 6 months, but they failed. And then the 4th one took a year. They also failed. Failed in the sense that they were not healthy enough to donate to me, primarily because of it's really a prevalent disease now. 3 of the 4 of them were pre-diabetic, and they look. All 4 of them are actually looking pretty healthy when you look at them from the outside. They're not obese. In fact, my sister, who was my first potential donor, she's very slim. In fact, she's probably a little underweight for her height and age, but she's pre-diabetic. I was shocked. And then another one is my classmate from PT school, who was very athletic. Played sports, still does to this day, rides the bike, but surprisingly, he's pre-diabetic. And then my third one is the first altruistic living kidney donor that I've come to meet, and her name is Chrissy from Albuquerque, New Mexico. She's 28 years old, beautiful woman. She just saw my story and filled out the questionnaire and volunteered to be a donor. Unfortunately, she just had a baby a few months before she filled out the questionnaire back in September 2016, and she had gestational diabetes. The 4th one is a friend of mine, Dave, who's from Michigan. I've known him for at least a decade now, and he's very healthy looking and all that, but he had a history of liver issues. So those are the reasons why. And I'm really, I was just watching this series on diabetes being called the Black Plague of the 21st century, because a huge portion of the American population has either diabetes type 1, mostly type 2, and also pre-diabetic, and we're talking Americans of all ages. You know, and as I said before, now more than half of the U.S. population are overweight, and a third are obese. You know, what's the difference between overweight and obese? Well, you know, BMI, which is the body mass index, if you're under 29 or under BMI, between 25 and 29, you're considered overweight. If you're 30 and above BMI, 30 points above, then that means you're obese. I was obese once. I was overweight for a long time. Now I'm at about 20.4% BMI, which is good, because what's good is between 18 to 24. So I've had this BMI for, gosh, I don't know how long now, for quite some time, at least 4 or 5 years. And I was diabetic up until like 7.5 years ago, and I did everything I can to lose weight, change my lifestyle, reduce my stress, which is really related to being overweight. And I can relate some story later on. So, so this scourge called diabetes is really, I mean, I see it every day with my patients, you know. And also I see it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with my colleagues in the kidney dialysis centers. So, and that's one thing that I wanted to contribute to in either decreasing it or eliminating, because I did it. I was able to reduce my A1C, which is your blood glucose level, which determines if you're diabetic or not, down to 4.8, which is very normal. Anything below 5.5 A1C is considered normal. Above 5.5, you know, 6, 7, 8, that's you know, that's diabetic. You know, there is a way to reverse diabetes. So. But I will go through this process in the coming days about how I did that. Actually, I wrote my book a little bit about it, how I reversed diabetes, but I'm going to go more into it as I release this new program that I'm going to be coming up around my birthday, which is coming up in about 3 weeks. So. Anyways, that's my random thoughts and random memories and thoughts for today. I appreciate you, you know, being here live as I basically talk out my memoir, because my purpose is to really write this process or this my kidney journey, as I know it will help a lot of more people once I convert this into a book, which I plan to soon. And I do better talking it out than writing it. I can write, I've written my book, but half of it is really dictated, because I can think better and more clearly when I talk. And I talk faster than I can type. So that's why I'm doing this right now, and I'm going to be continuing to do this for the next 3-4 weeks. And then this Saturday, I'll be attending this End Your Weight seminar at the Methodist Transplant Hospital about ending the wait for a kidney donor match. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot, so I'll be there this weekend. Hey Jennifer, how you doing? So that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for your time, and I will talk to you tomorrow. If you have any questions, just feel free to message me on Facebook Messenger. And that is it for tonight, day 6 of National Kidney Month. March 6th of 2018. Good night. Bye-bye for now. Thank you.